Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a fascinating, yet often overlooked chapter of Swiss history, a conflict with a very peculiar name, the Stecklikrieg, or the War of Cudgels. Now, you might be thinking, a war fought with sticks. It sounds almost like something out of a storybook, but this was a real and pivotal event that reshaped the future of Switzerland. So, let's set the stage. The year is 1802. Just a few years earlier, in 1798, French revolutionary armies had marched into the old Swiss Confederacy, a loose alliance of self-governing cantons that had existed for centuries. In its place, Napoleon Bonaparte established the Helvetic Republic. This new state was modelled on the French Republic. It was centralised, standardised, and completely alien to the Swiss tradition of local autonomy and federalism. Imagine going from a system where your local village or canton had immense power to one where all major decisions were made by a central government in a distant city. For many Swiss, especially in the rural, conservative heartlands of central Switzerland, this was an outrage. They resented the French-imposed constitution, the loss of their traditional rights, and the new taxes levied to support the French occupation. The Helvetic Republic was deeply unpopular from the start. It was seen not as a liberation, but as a foreign imposition. The Republic was plagued by instability. Its government was weak, its finances were a mess, and it was constantly caught between the demands of the French and the resistance of its own people. Several coups and attempted coups took place in its first few years. The Swiss were divided. On one side were the Unitarians, who supported the centralised republic, and on the other were the federalists, who longed for a return to the old system of cantonal sovereignty. The spark that lit the fuse came in the summer of 1802. Napoleon, busy with other European affairs, made a crucial decision. He ordered the withdrawal of French troops from Switzerland. He likely thought the Helvetic Republic was stable enough to stand on its own. He was wrong. The moment the French soldiers began to pack their bags, the Federalists saw their chance. It was like a dam breaking. The uprising started almost immediately. Across the countryside, militias began to form. But here's where the name Stecklikrieg comes from. The French had disarmed the Swiss population years earlier. So, when these Federalist rebels rose up, they didn't have a vast arsenal of muskets and cannons. Many of them armed themselves with whatever they could find: farm implements, old hunting weapons, and most iconically, simple wooden clubs, or Stacker in Swiss German. This wasn't an army of professional soldiers. This was a popular revolt. It was farmers, artisans, and townspeople, furious at the central government and determined to reclaim their old freedoms. Their battle cry was a return to the old ways. The Federalist forces, despite their simple weapons, were highly motivated and had the overwhelming support of the rural population. The Helvetic Republic's government, based in the capital city of Bern at the time, was in a panic. Their own army was small, demoralized, and unreliable. Many of its soldiers sympathized with the rebels. As the Federalist insurrection spread like wildfire from central and eastern Switzerland, the government's authority crumbled. One of the first major clashes happened in early September. A Federalist army, thousands strong, marched on the city of Zurich. The government forces there were outnumbered and outmaneuvered. After a brief struggle, Zurich fell to the rebels. This was a massive blow to the Republic and a huge victory for the Federalists. It showed everyone that the rebellion was a serious threat. With momentum on their side, the Federalist leaders organized their forces and began a concerted push towards the capital, Bern. The main Federalist army was led by a man named Alois von Reding, a veteran officer from Schwyz who had become the face of the resistance. Under his command, an army of nearly 20,000 men, again, many armed with little more than clubs, surrounded Bern in late September 1802. The defense of Bern was half-hearted at best. The government, realizing its position was hopeless, fled the city, first to Lausanne and then to Geneva. On September 18th, the Federalist army marched into Bern without a fight. The Helvetic Republic had effectively collapsed. The War of Cudgels had been a stunning success for the rebels. The federalists quickly set about restoring the old order. They convened a traditional assembly, a Tagsatzung, in the canton of Schwyz and began drafting a new federalist constitution that would restore the power of the cantons. For a moment, it seemed like they had won, that Switzerland would return to its pre-1798 state. But they had forgotten one crucial player, Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon was furious. He had not gone to all the trouble of creating the Helvetic Republic just to see it dismantled by a peasant army with sticks. He saw the chaos in Switzerland as a threat to his influence and a challenge to his authority. He famously declared, "I will not tolerate a counter-revolution in Switzerland." He issued an ultimatum. He demanded that the makeshift federalist government dissolve itself and that all parties send delegates to Paris for a consultation to decide the future of Switzerland. To back up his demand, he sent a massive French army of 30,000 troops under General Michel Ney marching back towards the Swiss border. The federalist leaders faced an impossible choice. They could fight, but their cudgel-wielding militias stood no chance against Napoleon's disciplined, battle-hardened veterans. Resistance would mean a devastating and unwinnable war. Reluctantly, they accepted the inevitable. The Federalist army was disbanded, and the dream of restoring the old Confederacy was over. The Stecklikrieg, which had lasted only about 3 months, came to a quiet end. Delegates from both the Federalist and Unitarian factions travelled to Paris in late 1802. There, Napoleon, acting as a mediator, dictated the terms of Switzerland's future. He listened to both sides, but ultimately he imposed his own solution. The result was the Act of Mediation of 1803. This act was a masterful political compromise. It abolished the deeply unpopular Helvetic Republic, but it didn't fully restore the old system either. Instead, it created a new Swiss confederation of 19 cantons. It restored cantonal sovereignty in most local matters, which pleased the Federalists. However, it also guaranteed legal equality for all citizens and maintained a degree of central coordination for things like foreign policy and the army, which satisfied some of the Unitarian goals. Essentially, Napoleon recognized that forcing a centralized state on the Swiss was a mistake. The Stecklikrieg had proven that. He crafted a system that respected Switzerland's long tradition of federalism while still keeping the country under French influence. This new mediation period would last until Napoleon's downfall in 1815. So, what is the legacy of this strange little War of Cudgels? It might seem like a failed rebellion, but in reality, it was profoundly important. The Stecklikrieg demonstrated, in no uncertain terms, that the Swiss people would not accept a purely centralized government imposed from the outside. It forced Napoleon to reconsider his approach and led directly to the Act of Mediation, which laid the groundwork for the modern federalist state of Switzerland that exists today. The war showed the deep-rooted Swiss desire for self-determination and local autonomy. It was a victory in defeat. The rebels lost the war against Napoleon's army, but they won the argument about how Switzerland should be governed. The Stecklikrieg is a powerful reminder that sometimes the most profound changes come not from grand armies, but from ordinary people armed with little more than courage, conviction, and a few wooden clubs. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into a fascinating piece of Swiss history. If you found this interesting, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next historical deep dive. Let me know in the comments what you think. We'll see you in the next video.